Hello, my name is Matthew Deutsch. I'm a professional business plan writer. I've been doing this for the past 20 years, and this is part of an ongoing video series I'm developing, just discussing varying aspects related to developing business plans and entrepreneurship. Today I'm going to be discussing writing a business plan specific for a home healthcare agency. This, more so than other types of business plans, this one has a little bit more complexity because it is a healthcare focused business. If you're doing skilled care, certainly in instances, you'll be able to receive funding from private healthcare entities as well as publicly funded healthcare systems, which adds a substantial degree of complexity as opposed to, say, doing a business plan for a local retail store, where there isn't that going to be that same level of complexity. Additionally, there's ongoing complications given the fact that you're going to be employing a number of either skilled or standard care individuals. With skilled care, obviously, you're going to be retaining registered nurses and licensed practical nurses to provide service. With a general in-home care where skilled care is going to be provided, it's a little bit more straightforward given that the licensure needed is not nearly as complex and the business itself is not nearly as complex to run. Let me start with, what I'm going to start this is just discussing the outline in terms of how I would write the plan. I always follow a 9-chapter, 5-appendix format. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to focus on the 9 chapters. The appendixes that are in the back of the plan are the SWOT analysis, the risk analysis, and then just an expansion of the profit and loss and cash flow analysis. I always start each business plan with the executive summary. And even though that's the first chapter, that's the chapter that should be written the last, mainly because that acts as a roadmap for the rest of the business. Chapter 2 in any plan that I write always focuses on the financing, whether you're looking for a working capital line of credit, business loan, either an SBA or conventional business loan or private investment. This is the section that discusses that in terms of how much capital you'll need, how those funds will be allocated, ownership information, and an exit strategy. In most instances, when I work with startup home healthcare agencies for both skilled care and general and non-skilled care, a lot of times most of my clients will look to acquire a working capital line of credit as opposed to a business plan, mainly because the biggest expense is going to be payroll while you're waiting for invoices to be paid. There really isn't much in the way of furniture, fixtures, or equipment that's needed. Obviously, a vehicle, staff, or you typically use their own vehicle. In some instances, I have seen where a home healthcare agency will require that their service members use a corporate vehicle. But outside of that, really, working capital is going to be the biggest expense from a payroll standpoint. Chapter 3 in any plan that I would write specific for a home healthcare agency is specific for operations. This discusses the scope of services that's being provided, the target profile of individuals, especially if they have special needs, whether or not there's going to be specialized therapists, either contracted or on staff, such as physical therapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, or whether or not the agency is going to have any affiliation with a physician or physicians group. Again, there are numerous ways to start and grow a home healthcare agency, and there's a number of relationships that these agencies can have with third-party healthcare professionals to assist in providing the greatest amount of care possible for the enrolled clients. Chapter 4 of the plan typically consists of just sort of the general pedigree of the business, where it's located, where operations will start, mission statement, vision statement. I always think it's an important part of the plan, but it doesn't need to have a huge amount of emphasis in regards to mission and vision statement. My key focus in any plan that I write is to show that it's going to be an economically viable enterprise. Chapter 5 is the industry and market analysis. The way I typically break this down is into 4 different sections. The first section is the economic analysis. This discusses the general state of the economy, how a potential recession could impact the business. One of the nice things about home healthcare agencies is that they do operate with a tremendous degree of economic stability. This is something that families that have older individuals or individuals with disabilities or special needs, this is something that's going to be required at all times, regardless of how the economy is doing. But I still always like to make sure that I bring it up as part and parcel with any good business plan. Under that is typically the industry analysis, discussing how these businesses expand and industry analysis, how these businesses as a whole expand, what the outlook is for the industry. This also covers total industry revenue, the number of people employed by the industry, and other trends that are occurring. Right under that is the client profile and demographic analysis. This is one of the most important parts of the business plan because it outlines the size of the market, the potential number of people within your target market radius that are either older or have special needs and require ongoing in-home care. In any business plan that I write, a full demographic analysis is done to examine this market, as well as the size of the market. How many, based on the anticipated number of people that may need this, what is the total size of the local market? That's something I focus on very heavily. And if you're developing your own plan, something you should focus on very heavily as well. Right under that is the competitive analysis. It's a very fragmented industry. There are very few very large companies that operate on a nationwide scale. Most of these businesses are local to regional size businesses. But again, taking a look at your competitors, what they do, where they excel, what their weaknesses are, that should be covered as well. The following chapter is focused on growth. Basically, post-startup phase, now you're up and running. What are the ways that the business is going to continue to grow? For home healthcare businesses, it's pretty straightforward. Increase marketing, bringing on additional clients, and then hiring additional staff to provide either non-medical care or skilled care. Chapter 7, in my opinion, outside of the financial plan, the most important part of the plan, which is marketing. If no one knows about your business, you're going to have trouble generating clients. This section should be probably more in depth than the others. Typically running 3 to 4 pages, discussing social media strategies, direct outreach strategies with physicians and social workers and psychologists, anyone that works with individuals who are either older and have special or have special needs, how that you can receive referrals. The online marketing strategies heavily geared towards targeted social media, search engine optimization, pay-per-click marketing, all these things incredibly important to show exactly how you're going to generate a client base. Chapter 8, I typically focus on the personnel. This includes salaries for all staff, including the owner, anyone that's per hour, it's indicated, as well as how many hours a month they intend to work and over the course of a year, as well as an organizational chart. Chapter 9, the financial plan. This is probably, again, the most important section of the plan, always starting with the profit and loss. And if you've seen some of my other videos, the profit and loss is pretty straightforward. If you can add and subtract, money coming in, money going out, profit or loss, and hopefully a profit. In regards to the operating costs, things like payroll, rent, utilities, advertising, vehicle expenses, any type of referral fees you may pay, if that, or commissions if someone sends a referral your way, if that's permitted in your area. All those things should be very thoroughly included in that part of it. After that is the cash flow analysis. And the cash flow analysis can be a little bit confusing because it looks similar to a profit and loss statement, but what it's really doing is just showing where the actual physical cash your business has is going. The top line is always the net profit plus the depreciation. This allows you to see how much cash you have in terms, especially if you're going to be repaying any sort of working capital line of credit or business loan. The repayment of principal will be shown there because interest is shown on the profit and loss statement. That's a common error that's made on the profit and loss. You only show the interest expense on the profit and loss. The principal is shown on the cash flow analysis. Also on the cash flow analysis is any dividends that are going to be distributed or after-tax profits. That's sort of the better way to put it. Once everything has been paid, here's the profit of the business, here's what's going to be distributed to either you as the owner or if there are several owners involved. Then there's the balance sheet. This is a little bit more straightforward. Assets, liabilities, equity. If you're financing the business or if you're working with a private investor, the assets and equity will be pretty similar because you really won't have too many liabilities outside of payroll and potential tax liabilities. If you've acquired a business loan or line of credit, that will be shown on the liability section as a long-term liability. And it gives a sense of, basically what your equity in the business is. No different than if you own a home, and let's just say hypothetically, it's $500,000, you put down $200,000, you borrowed $300,000, your equity would be $200,000. Let's say the house appreciates to $750,000, your equity is now $450,000. Very similar to that, and that's sort of the best way to look at it. I also always include a break-even analysis and business ratios page in order to show when the business is going to ultimately turn profitable, as well as pertinent business ratios, especially if you're going to be borrowing capital to start your business. And that's essentially it. In closing, again, I've been writing business plans for the past 20 years. I've worked extensively with home healthcare agencies, both non-medical and skilled care. I've worked with them as well as integrated ones where they offer both, as well as companies that work with provide specialized therapies, again, occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy as well as incidental non-medical transportation. I've seen them integrated, very heavily into one enterprise. If you need a business plan or if you're trying to work on your own and you're struggling with a bit, certainly feel free to reach us at any time. The name of the company is Deutsch & Thomas. We're actually going through a bit of a rebranding at the moment. After 20 years, it was time to freshen things up a bit. So our new website is humanintelligencebusinessplans.com. In the link, there is a direct sample to what a home healthcare agency business plan looks like. It's a sample. All of the work I do is done under a confidentiality agreement, so this was just produced as a sample. This isn't prior client work. But feel free to take a look at it. And again, any questions, feel free to reach me at any time. Take care.